everyone, and welcome to Making Finances Sexy. I'm Jessica Lay, your rent, rave, own realtor and certified instructor with 101 Financial right here in the Valley of the Sun. It is my mission to help you move from renting to homeownership, no matter your current financial situation. I'm ready to be your personal finance coach and first-time home buyer specialist. And with me,
Woot.
Rose Short.
What's up, guys? Rose Short here, aka the Red Queen. I'm a realtor here in the Phoenix Valley, as well as CEO of Critical Luxury and a financial consultant. It's my mission to help you build multiple income streams, get out of the office, get into nature, get into that vacation mode 24/7, and just really enjoy the life you have while not having to worry about money.
Woohoo. And today I'm really excited to talk to you all about beginner investing in real estate. So,
Yes.
I don't come from wealth, and I've had to really get creative with the ways to make my money work for me and a way to buy a home without having a lot of money up front, right? Especially in this day and age. There are a lot of people my age, your age, millennials, that feel kind of stuck, like they can't buy a home. But I'm here to tell you, you definitely can. Kalani and I closed this year, which when with the interest rates being what they are, and it's possible for everyone. If we can do it, you guys can do it. And I'm excited to get into this topic today.
Yeah, interest rates are such a they're one variable, right? And like everyone puts so much stock in interest rates. And like we always tell people, marry the house, date the rate, because you can always refinance when rates go down. So, and rates, average rate and your rate are not the same, right? So it's going to be contingent on your risk assessment. So just that's where talking to professionals comes in handy.
Yes, absolutely. So, if you are thinking about it, this is why I hark on personal finance education so much, because we couldn't have done it without a solid financial foundation first. If you're in debt, you want to free yourself up of that debt before making the decision, because it is a big purchase and it is a lot of money down still. So, just making sure you're at a pretty clean state. I'm not saying you don't have to have zero debt, but just having that financial plan in place and building your savings is essential before making this purchase. But when you are a first time home buyer, a lot of people don't know this. You can buy a home for 3.5% to 5% down, which is awesome. So going into it with less money down, Kalani and I, we started doing what's called house hacking, which is that beginner real estate investing tip. And house hacking, it involves renting out a portion of your home, like bedrooms, basement, if you have a basement, or a unit that's on top of the property, things of that nature. And that generates you income and offsets that housing costs. Kalani and I started with two roommates. Now we have a third. So it's so helpful generating that income or having the mortgage pretty much covered so we can continue with our financial plan and goals of saving money and getting ready for our next investments. And it takes away some of that comfort, but it's short term. Like we miss having our own space to, do whatever we want and like not have to worry about other people being in the house. But honestly, this small sacrifice will be worth it in the long term. And that's what we just focus on. Because I know some people, they just won't give up that comfort of having their own space. And that will take you more time to, build your savings or pay off that home. So it's really up to you, but I think house hacking is a great way to get started and to build wealth a little bit more quickly.
Yeah, I did the same thing when I first bought. I had a flatmate as well. And when they left, we really considered bringing another person. But I really like having the office and
Yes, no,
being able to do this without the dogs being everywhere.
absolutely. That's why, because I was renting and I had these roommates and I had to give up my office space in that home. So, and when we talked to them about when Kalani and I were thinking about purchasing, they were going to be moving with us. So we knew that ahead of time. If you're able to, if you have roommates now and you're renting and you know that they'll want to move with you, you could always put that into consideration when you're purchasing your first property, because your first property isn't your dream home typically. So keeping that in mind, or if like you want to start house hacking and you're planning to get roommates later, like just keep that in your list of must-haves in the home. Like our home, I love all our roommates are on one side of the house. Kalani and I are on the opposite end, and it just feels like we have our own space, but we do have roommates.
For sure, yeah. And there's more and more homes that have multiple en suites, which also can assist with that. Because then, you could even potentially buy with a friend, assuming that you're both very, secure in your finances and like you work well together. Because let's be honest, that can be a little nerve-wracking. But there's ways to buy that does not, necessarily just include like the traditional boyfriend, girlfriend, or husband, wife scenario. So, and there are plenty of programs out there, depending on where you live, that you can get a home for almost nothing down. So, really
Yeah,
make sure you're exploring the options.
exactly. Explore the options and talk to a real estate professional.
Yes.
So the benefits of house hacking, I touched on it, but it's reduced living expenses. The rental income can lower, even eliminate that mortgage payment, making homeownership a ton more affordable. Equity building. So Kalani and I, we're now able to put additional funds to, well, right now we're attacking our water softener. We're going to get that paid off, but then we put additional funds to the mortgage. So bringing it down, like we want to bring it down as quickly as possible so we can build that equity and get our next investment. Cash flow generation. It provides a steady stream of income. I quit my 9 to 5 and I'm surviving in this real estate market because people are scared to buy, scared of interest rates and things like that. The holidays are coming up, so I get that. So just having that income is a game changer and really, really helpful if you are working part time or no time really, or you're freelancing and your money is kind of all over the place. Just having a steady stream of cash flow can help you. And experience in real estate. So I just got my property management certification, I guess, with the brokerage, but learning about like tenants and how they operate and things like that, it's been eye-opening, like to actually have that experience with tenants. At least it's people I know. But just understanding the rental market and preparing me for longer investments and whatnot. It is important that you do everything properly, like write up the leases or hire a property manager to write up the leases for you, because you can like end up in scary situations. I just watched Worst Roommate Ever. I don't know if you've seen that show, but it's crazy. There was like this one episode of this serial squatter. So this guy just like went and stayed as roommates with people, but they did no background checks. They didn't have like paperwork in place. So they let him into his house to live and the police couldn't do anything. And he was just havoc, like wreaking havoc and not leaving. And you just don't want that to happen to you. So make sure you do it legally with a lease in place so you're protected.
For sure.
And again, I am your personal finance coach. So financial planning in building confidence and achieving this financial freedom through real estate. Usually poor financial planning is what's keeping a lot of people out of the real estate game. And when we have these plans in place, you have a direction because now you know your goals short and long term, and it helps you understand what you need to do to achieve that end goal, which is buying your first house, and which is the most difficult part of all of this. I'm realizing myself, like, once you get into that first property, it's snowballs. Like, it can become so much easier after that, as long as you know what you're doing and you're making those mortgage payments. So we always talk about it, budgeting. We need to budget. It also establishes that clear picture of your income and expenses. It enables that better decision making and risk management. It helps identify what the financial risks are and prepares you with a strategy. So having that emergency fund, you're owning it now. You can't just call up the landlord and say, hey, this is broken. Can you come fix it? You're going to have to make those calls and come fix it yourself. Or again, why we recommend a real estate professional. They can provide you with home warranty companies. And that makes it a lot easier that you can call them and they'll get the right people out here to fix things. But you do have to account for those expenses.
Yeah, and that becomes super important with your investment property as well, right? Because like so often people are like, oh, well, I'll just charge them what the mortgage is. It's like, okay, cool. But what happens when the roof needs replaced? And that's why typically the rent is higher than the mortgage payment because some of that you're getting paid is going to the mortgage and then some is going aside, hopefully, to, repairs, things like that. So that's one of the reasons that, again, typically the rent is higher than like what the mortgage would be. Now that doesn't mean you have to be a slumlord and, triple the rent or anything like that. But it is something to consider.
Absolutely. Definitely need to pay attention to the rental market because if you are charging buckets above the other landlords, then your property might not be rented out for a minute.
Or the opposite. If you're charging below market value, you're probably going to get hassled by the bigger corporation landlords as well. So keep
Okay.
that all in mind.
Yeah, totally. And then setting milestones within your financial plan, it gives you a sense of achievement and it keeps you accountable for your financial decisions. So that motivation and accountability that comes from solid financial planning and your long-term vision. We want to encourage focus to long-term wealth building strategies rather than short-term gains, and that leads to sustainable financial health and independence. And I have to mention, so with 101 Financial, we actually do all of that for you and with you guys. It's budgeting. We track your income and expenses, your cash flow. We save up for that emergency fund. We want to have 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses, especially if that end goal is buying a property for those unexpected costs. And then we also strategize for paying off any high interest debt if you have it and improve your credit score, which just sets you up for success and makes this big purchase a lot less scary. That's what I noticed in Kalani and I's personal experience is we were able to go into it knowing exactly what we could afford, knowing we had a cushion of an emergency fund. And yeah, that just 10 times made the experience better. Besides the whole actual process, we got we got a agent that was kind of incompetent, sadly, not going to say their name, but it was just a whole mess of a process, which I will be posting that series on my YouTube channel coming up probably in 2025. So I hope you guys subscribe and check that out. Yeah, it was a horrendous process. And if on top of that we had financial issues, I don't know, I would have lost all my hair.
Yeah, you never know what's gonna go wrong, right? Especially like when you're in the inspection period, you're just like, oh God, what's the inspector gonna find? And then, yeah, having someone on the other side who doesn't really know what they're doing doesn't help either. So, you've got all these stressful situations, regardless of how good your real estate agent is. You don't need to be adding to that, like, oh, how am I gonna pay the mortgage when it's due?
Yep, exactly. So tracking your budget, sticking to your budget and your plan, getting help from a financial coach, it just can go a long way. And once you're in that first property and you're house hacking, you build up that equity, then you can use that money and buy your next property once you've done the 2 years requirement. Arizona, that's the requirement. I'm not sure what other states are, but if once you're in there 2 years, you can pull out, get your next property, and then you just keep building. And once you get to that fourth or fifth property, you should have enough capital to just get an investor loan and you can expand your portfolio even from there.
Yeah, for sure. And when we say investment property, you don't have to be a lowball investor. You don't have to be, looking for the fix and flip properties. Like you don't have to be that kind of investor. I know right now there's a lot of hate out there for people that own multiple properties, but they own multiple properties for a reason, right? So we're all trying to make it by. Does it suck that the rental market right now is so trash? Absolutely. But again, you can own an investment property and not be part of the problem, right? You can start to be part of the solution. So don't be
Exactly.
too worried about that.
Yes. That's like my goal because I've lived in a lot of rentals and they have like I haven't been treated the greatest. Nobody really came to check in on me or the property. They were just, these big chain companies. But if we get more people with the same goals as me, I want people to enjoy their stay at my rental and families to love it like their own, like, and not, yeah, just be a change in this ugly rental market because rentals are so necessary and needed by people because of poor financial decisions and like the credit score requirements being more challenging for people in this day and age. And that's why I just can't stress personal finance education enough because it's needed, especially now with higher rates than they were in 2020, and just really being mindful about where our money is coming and going and getting out of that hole you might have dug yourself in. It's so simple to do. You just have to ask, which can be the most challenging part for most. I know it was for me, but and it's either stay the same or we can move on and take the risk with real estate, which typically you'd be really, really glad you did because now it's yours.
And honestly, with some of the rental requirements when it comes to credit and like, income and whatnot, you're actually probably better off buying because when you're buying, you can just do a manual underwrite. You can at least do a manual underwrite where they take into account more than just your credit versus with a rental. A lot of times with these big corporations, they don't care what your situation is and they're not trying to hear, any excuses. So one of the reasons I bought is because my significant other couldn't get approved for an apartment anywhere because his credit was so low. So it was like I either have him living there without them knowing, which, could be a problem, or I bought. So I bought.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people, you may be in a position where you can buy, but you just don't know. And that's why hiring a professional, speaking with a lender, just it's free, you guys. Like go online. I can send you a link to our team's preferred lender and just fill out the application and see what happens. That's what like Kalani and I have been talking about buying a house for 2 years before we actually did it. And Kalani was just like, I'm just gonna submit the application. He obviously on his own did not come back with enough to buy a house here. So we ended up doing an application together and we were able to do it, able to make it happen. But we had no idea until we just took that step and submitted a application to our loan officer. And again, that's a free process. You can just do it, see what happens. If you don't get approved, now you know what you need to work on.
Exactly.
So educate yourself on real estate investing strategies. House hacking, again, is if you have no capital really upfront, it's, in my opinion, the cheapest way to get started as a real estate investor. You can attend, there's lots of workshops or networking events and just connect with real estate groups and online forums, because having those conversations, hearing people actually doing it and having success in it can be a driving factor to get you to actually do it because it's working. Just find out how, who, and build your circle up with people that you want to be around and that are having success in this, because then you become who you hang out with.
Exactly. Next week, we're going to talk about the dangers of disconnecting too much when you have a team or automation in place when you're running your business.